screen, zeuseducation@yahoo.com. I have a phone number, 818-223-1194. You can call or text at that phone number. And then for those of you who don't know, we have our website, zeuseducation.org. Just a little bit about Zeus Education before we get started. We're a full-service education consulting company. We advise families and students through applying to independent schools, colleges, graduate programs such as law school, MBA, medical school, PhDs, other programs. We have a lot of success working with different students applying to all these different programs. We also do standardized testing options such as ACT, SAT, the LSAT, GMAT. But we have a lot of options to fit your needs. All right, so anyway, like I said before, for people who just tuned in, we're gonna be discussing tonight mastering the college resume, and let's get started. Okay, so I first want to talk about why a strong resume matters. Um, the resume helps organize achievements that may not fit elsewhere in the application. Inside a resume, you may list activities you've done, different leadership roles, maybe some jobs you've had, different research you've completed. Um, Now, the counselors and teachers often use resumes when writing recommendation letters, so it's really important that these are done to the best of their ability. And then it's also important to note that scholarship committees, they frequently rely on resumes during evaluation to determine if you're going to be considered for a scholarship and if you're going to be getting a scholarship. And also a few important points to note when making these resumes. It's really important to be organized, be professional, and show achievement. For example, it's not good to maybe list some things you did in middle school. It's important to have your stuff lined up chronologically, normally from high school going forward. And then also it's important to note, guys, that normally you're limited to one page in these college applications. So you really have to synthesize what you've done, what you feel is important, and what's really going to make you stand out best to the admission committees. I see a common problem where students want to put every single thing on a resume, and that's normally the wrong way to go about it. And that's where, having someone who's been through this process can really help to show you what's good, what's maybe not as good, and the right way to really present yourself to the committee. All right, guys, let's move on to the next slide. Um, so now what admission officers look for in resumes. So it's important to note that admission officers normally ask the same questions when going through these resumes. I made a quick list here for you guys of a few things, a few of the, the commonly asked questions. So first, did the student make a meaningful impact? Did they achieve their initiative for this impact? Um, are they among some of the strongest students in their environment? Do they contribute to their community? How are they going to contribute on campus? A lot of schools don't do interviews, so the resume paints a picture of who you are and what you're going to actually give to the school. Then also, a resume, it's not just about cramming as much as you possibly can on it. They care more about the depth and impact than just, I want to take this page and list 20 activities. It's no, it should be like 10 activities that actually show you had a meaningful impact and kind of helps the college understand the student they're going to get and what impact you're going to make on campus. Essentially why they should admit you over some other student, and just listing more stuff that isn't relevant to the college normally isn't the way to go about this. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but tonight was I wanted to do a short overview on the resume. I keep getting a lot of messages from people asking about the resume, what to include, what not to include. So just a brief overview, a quick 13 or so slides for you guys to hopefully get you guys on the right track. Um, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but the structure and formatting cannot be overlooked. I mentioned earlier one page, having consistent fonts, you list professional experience, there's arguments, people differ over whether it should be bullet point or complete sentences. That's a conversation for another day. But the main takeaway here is not to have long paragraphs that are really hard to read, because the admissions officers receive like thousands of resumes. Some of them look at thousands of resumes a day. So it has to be something that's visually appealing that admission officer can look at it and kind of really, they have to really understand what they're getting. Then I made a note of this, but you have to make sure you get the format right when submitting all these colleges. You have to be able to submit your resume into a PDF format. So maybe take that into consideration if you're working on Google Docs or Word or whatever software you're going to be making these resumes on. I also want to include a recommended section for you guys of what should be included on the resume really quickly is a brief overview. You should include contact info, education, honors and awards, community service, employment, skills and certificates. And then I feel like this can't be overlooked enough, but I see people making this issue every single year. You got to make sure you don't have spelling errors or something like excessive colors. For example, I worked with a student a few years ago and he wanted to have blue font for his resume, and he might have thought it looked good. He's used it in the past with some other clubs and stuff he was involved with, but in applying to colleges, you have to make sure it is professional and the right structure and format that these colleges are looking for. Just consistent fonts, no fancy graphics, kind of get right to the point, present it clearly, so the admission officer in their brief look at it understands what they're getting. Okay, guys, let's continue to move on. So now I wanted to talk about writing powerful activity descriptions. I included a strong example and a weak example here for you guys. And I also include a formula that really helps students. Um, I also included some further examples underneath the formula. Some action words I like using is like founded, led, organized. Like I said, why don't you guys take a minute, look through the strong example and the weak example, take 30 seconds to a minute, and then we'll move on to the rest of these slides. Okay, we'll cut it a little short. I know I said I'll give you guys a minute, but we'll continue moving on. I hope you had a chance to really understand the strong example versus the weak example and how some of these action verb measurable impact resumes are really different compared to the weak examples. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I get a lot of questions from families about what do colleges actually value in a resume? After you put your education, you normally only have like 3/4 of a page left. So it's a conversation I normally get of what should you put on these resumes? So I included a list of examples here that normally have good results. And the important thing to be aware of is high impact leadership examples. Because like I said, you only have 3/4 of a page. So you got to make sure you're using it wisely. Some of the things that normally have good results include things like community initiative organizer, someone who's doing research, who's maybe a project leader. If you played sports in high school, were you a team captain, a club president? These are some high impact examples that I see students have a lot of success with. Um, yeah, another one I wanted to mention quickly was startup founder. You do see students starting startups early on in high school. And also students who write, yeah, it's just essentially these high impact leadership examples. That doesn't necessarily have to be one of these, but showing you took initiative outside the classroom and that you're involved, part of something bigger, because that's just what these schools want when they have you arrive on campus. There's enough students who aren't going to have these high impact leadership examples or might have no leadership at all. And then also, guys, for students I start working with earlier, normally as early as freshman year or earlier, I help a lot of students get into these impact leadership positions and really help them lay the path for what activities you should be doing throughout high school and how to get involved in these things. Um, for example, in finding a nonprofit, sometimes you have to set up with the Secretary of State, you have to get official non-exempt status. But then despite, taking the time early on to really get involved in these kind of activities, when it's time to apply to colleges, you have to establish a nonprofit that these admission officers can look at and actually understand the impact you're going to be providing to the school and your high impact leadership examples on your resumes. Okay, we have like 3 or 4 more slides for you guys this evening. Let's continue moving on. I want to talk about now showcasing academic excellence on resumes. I included some things to include and also some examples. Um, so important things to include, GPA, you should include your class rank if it's strong. Be sure to mention AP and honors courses that you took. You could talk about research projects, academic competitions, publications, different awards you've won. Um, it's important that some of these things you're including, it can be obviously academic like we discussed, but a lot of it could demonstrate your engagement beyond the classroom. Some students I've worked with over the years, I listed some examples here. For example, they won a mathematics competition. They were a merit semifinalist. They were a research author. It's just, examples that once you already have the strong GPA, class rank, different test scores, it helps sets you apart from the competition if you present it the right way on your resumes. Yeah, moving on, guys, this next slide, I want to talk about some activities that actually impress select colleges. I talked about this earlier, but it's really important to dive deep and actually, um, like I said, have some depth in the things you write about on your resume. It's not just listing 20 different things and say you participate in all these different clubs. They'd rather have like 2 or 3 clubs and actually showed you had a lot of impact within the clubs. Instead of like 12, like I mentioned before, this could be just 2 or 3 areas that really show the impact you created and yeah, how much you know or what you've really done within that area. I listed some areas here on the right that are what I call high value activities. We kind of covered some of them earlier, but this could be like published writing, internships, independent research, community initiatives. This is a lot better, maybe listing two or three or two, three, four of these options than just saying I was involved in 20 different clubs because there's so many students taking that approach. And when admission officers see this, they overlook this and normally go on to the next student. Because you always have to remember when making these resumes, you're competing with students who all have a high GPA and normally all have high SATs, ACTs. So you have to really demonstrate the deep commitment to leadership across like some meaningful areas that you showed actual impact in. I want to list some typical mistakes that I see. Um, so it's important that you don't inflate the accomplishment. I mentioned earlier typos and grammar mistakes, poor formatting, and also just make sure normally the advice I find myself giving is to include activities from high school on. Because you gotta remember you only have a page. So if you're including things like if you think they're super important that you completed in middle school and elementary school, you're gonna have schools who see this and just kind of it's really not what they're looking for. And also, a lot of these schools, they'll give directions for what they want to see in a resume, and they want to see stuff from normally ninth grade on. And that's just the norm that you have to be aware of. So essentially, like it's something as simple as following directions. It can take you a long way when other students aren't going to be following them. And I had a note here for you guys. These admission officers, they get at like some of these premier schools, they get literally thousands and thousands of applications. So just being clear and concise. I had a note here about being accomplishment driven. This really stands out and it's going to set you apart from other applicants. Um, so I wanted to make this slide just kind of as we're closing off here for the night. I call it the Elite Admissions Resume Strategy. So be sure to show leadership, impact, some of your intellectual curiosity, whether you participate in some of these clubs, what you did within the clubs, maybe if you played sports at your school, did you do research? Was it published research? Did you complete any competitive summer programs? Just be clear, concise, have good formatting, and really focus on like two or four main things outside your GPA, test scores, education that really shows your impact and leadership you can present it, that you can offer to the school. I have a final slide thought for you guys also, or final thoughts, excuse me. So the strongest college resumes, they don't simply list accomplishments. It's important to try and use this space to demonstrate who you are, what you value, and how you create impact in the world. Because you have to remember most of these schools, they're not doing interviews. You're not really submitting that many applications. So outside the GPA and test scores, they're really looking at this one-page resume to try and understand who you are, and what kind of impact you're going to have on campus. Um, yeah, I know I said a lot of times, guys, just really focus on the depth versus listing number of activities. I can't say that enough. So I feel like it's really easy just to take that three-quarters of a page and list, every single thing you did because you think it's important. And it could be, but it might take longer to really go, on two or four main things and go in depth. That's what these admission committee, that's what they're looking to see. Because like I said, they want to see what impact you're going to bring to the school, and you only have so much space to do it. So you want to make sure you're doing it properly. Okay, guys, I appreciate everyone tuning in for this video. It looks like we had an incredible amount of people tuning in. I have so many questions. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer most of them tonight. I want to list my contact information. You can call or text me at 818-223-1194 with any questions. I'll be happy to go into further detail with all these questions you guys have. I listed our website also, zeuseducation.org. We have a really good blog there, a lot of free resources. Um, like I said, we really offer a lot from independent school applications, college applications, law school, med school, business school. We can help you with resumes, what this video was about. We do interview preparation. We're like a full service education consulting company. And I think what separates us apart too, as you guys know, that's probably why so many of you guys are here watching this video, is at Zeus Education, we're a team of people who have actually gone to elite schools. We've done it. We feel like we understand what these admission committees actually want to see. It's important to be aware that some of these other companies may someone at the very top went to one of these good schools, but sadly, you never actually get to work with them and you'll get handed off. And at Zeus, one of the things we value is, picking a select group of students to work with and actually guiding them all the way through the process and not handing you off to someone who's just going to be following like a pre-crafted set of things to work you through, because that's typically not what the best